Hi, Sarah here from Thriving Solo. And this week we're going to have a look at how we can use the information that we're collecting in our 15-minute weekly money routine. If you haven't watched that video yet or read the blog post, you might want to check it out. We're going to take a look at how to track what you collect and how to use it so that the numbers actually help you make decisions. This isn't just collecting information for the sake of it. We're going to actually use it in our practice. And this is because as solo practitioners, we're often carrying everything ourselves. We're doing the client care, we're doing the admin, the bookings, the notes, the marketing, dealing with the bills and all the tiny decisions in between. Money stress rarely comes from numbers alone. It usually comes from not knowing, not checking, or only looking when something feels urgent. When you avoid the money side, your brain tends to fill up the gaps with guesses, and guesses are often harsher than reality. So if you feel behind, you're not failing, you're just missing a simple routine. So as I say, we've had a look at what we do for the weekly money routine, and now we're going to have a look at how we can use it. That weekly money routine is a short weekly check-in with your practice finances. It's nothing more than that. It helps you notice small things before they turn into stressful things. And just think about your your clinic observations that you do. You know, how a quick regular check often works much better than waiting until there's a big problem. How often do we tell our clients, come in regularly for maintenance rather than letting things build up? And it's the same with our money. We need to make sure that we're dealing with the money admin on a regular basis so that it doesn't catch us out in one big swoop. So 15 minutes a week can be enough when you focus on the right information. And there's a lot of benefits that come from this. First, you stop relying on vibes. It helps you separate "I feel uneasy" from "cash is genuinely tight this month." If you know which one it is, you know how to respond properly. And this alone often lowers stress because certainty is much easier on the nervous system than guessing. Benefit two is that you catch problems early. Weekly money reviews can help you spot the problems while they're still small. So if you have got lower bookings than usual, or there's been a rise in costs, or you've missed an invoice payment, then you can see the trends weekly while you've got time to act. If you leave checking in to once every few months, it means that everything feels bigger and is harder to sort out. Calm practices don't avoid problems, they just notice them sooner and can act on them. So the third benefit is that you make better decisions with less panic. So without current numbers, your decisions often come from pressure. You may end up taking on extra hours when you're already tired. You could end up discounting too quickly, or buying a course or software because it feels helpful or it's on offer at the moment, not because it actually fits the budget or fits the needs of your clinic. So a weekly money routine gives context, and context makes decisions less emotional and more grounded. You don't need spreadsheets that are worthy of an audit, you just need numbers that you can trust. And this leads on to benefit four. You build trust with yourself. So let's look at the emotional side of this routine. Each weekly check-in is a small signal to yourself. I can look at this and I can handle it. This matters when money has felt messy, avoided, or vaguely shamey in the past. If you've worried about whether or not you can manage the finances, if the routine, this routine can be helpful in helping you establish that you are on top of things. Even if things are tight, when things are tight, clear information helps more than avoidance does. So we're going to look, as I say, at how to track the information that we've been collecting. So collecting the numbers each week is helpful, but tracking them over time is what makes patterns visible. And it doesn't need fancy software. Whatever option you're going for, a notebook, a basic spreadsheet, or a simple template, they can all work well. Whichever is what you use is what is helpful. So if you're not a techie person and would prefer to do things on paper, by all means do that. It's having consistency, not the format, that is the key here. So let's have a look. Some of the things that you're going to want to check are, the income received, the expenses paid, net cash movement, what your current bank balance is. We covered all this in the previous video, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but that short note that we do at the end of the money routine gives us a clear weekly snapshot. And over time, this becomes a useful record of what's normal in your practice. You might want to colour code, that can help give you a visual cue, but plain black text is absolutely fine. It doesn't need to be fancy. So what do we need to look for when you review the tracker over time? So weekly notes become more useful after a few weeks. The goal is to spot patterns, not judge yourself. So what we're looking for, income patterns, look for weeks that are consistently strong or consistently quiet. And you really do need to know both, because if you know you've got consistently strong weeks coming up, then you can feel that you can breathe just a little bit easier. If you know that it's consistently quiet, then, ask 3 questions. Is this normal? Is it seasonal? Or is it a problem? There might be natural dips around school breaks, holiday vacation time, or certain times of the month. Have a look, is there one service that brings in more than expected? Because you can then double down on this. Note whether income is stable, swinging a lot, or slowly dropping. With our expense patterns, we want to look for bills that are creeping up over time. Review whether software, subscriptions, or supplies still make sense. Check for annual renewals or less frequent costs that can catch you off guard. If you've got something that is only billed once or twice a year, that usually means that it's a bigger expense and it can catch you out with cash flow if you're not ready for it. And notice whether there are expenses that you barely use but you keep paying for. You may be able to cut costs without a loss of service. And look at your cash flow pressure points. Compare the money coming in against the money going out each week. Profit and cash flow aren't the same thing. Profit tells you if the business works on paper. Cash flow tells you if you've got enough money in the account at the right time. And for a solo practice, timing matters a lot. So you might have income that arrives after rent is due, or insurer payments that take longer than expected to come through. A quiet week landing next to several bills. So that cash flow can be important. And this is where, if you have created a buffer, you can draw on that buffer during the quiet times and fill it back up again when you're having the better weeks. Operational clues are also hidden inside the numbers. So that money data tells you a lot as well about your practice. If you've got rising cancellations, this might point to a problem that you've got with reminder issues or weak policies. Maybe you need to shuffle up the reminders so that they come closer to the appointment, or spread them out a little bit further, whichever is best for your clients. A lower average week might suggest that you've got underbooked clinic sessions. Regular dips after after busy weeks might show capacity limits. You might be having difficulty if you've had a really heavy week at actually doing as many sessions the following week. If you do retail sales of anything, ear seeds, for example, then sales dropping might mean that stock placement or follow-up needs attention. So the routine's not just about accounting, it's about running the practice better and making your money work for you. So one of the ways that we can actually use this information is to shift from tracking it to actual action. The routine becomes powerful when numbers shape the small decisions that you make each week. So I'm just going to run through a few case use cases for you to give you an idea of how you can use this information. So the first one is that you can plan your schedule with more realism. If certain sessions are rarely full, review whether those clinic hours still make sense. If people don't book that time, perhaps you shift your clinic hours to a different day, a different afternoon, etc. If one day is always packed while another stays thin, then you could consider adjusting availability. Maybe you move admin to a different day, one that's naturally quieter, and keep that day just for clinic sessions. If the data shows income drops when you're overstretched, then use that insight to protect your energy. Calm doesn't always come from working more. Sometimes it comes from working better, from timing the work better. So, as I said, another case use is build a buffer before you need it. I've just touched on this a few minutes ago. If the tracker shows that you have an uneven cash flow, you can start setting aside small amounts weekly. We've already talked about having a tax account, but you might want a little buffer account for when you've got slow months or when you've got annual fees due, or if you know that you're going to need equipment replacement. So those buffers help reduce the everything is fine until suddenly it isn't feeling. You know that you're ready for replacing that equipment, or you know you're going to have to put it off for another month. Even modest reserves can make a practice feel much safer. Case use 3 is making pricing decisions from evidence. So a lot of people tend to avoid price reviews. It feels uncomfortable. We feel awkward with our clients about changing our prices. But that weekly and monthly money review gives you some data to actually base your decisions on. So you look at income trends, you look at the rising costs, have a look at what your capacity limits are. Can you make up shortfall by having more sessions, or do you need to put your prices up? If costs are rising and your clinic is full, you are going to need to put up your prices. If bookings are patchy, then maybe you could alter your hours to suit to get more bookings and address any shortfall. The numbers don't make the decision for you, but they stop that decision floating in guesswork. Another case use is improving boundaries around cancellations and late payments. If cancellations show up regularly in the weekly tracker, then address them directly. Have a clearer cancellation policy. Remind people of it. Send reminder texts. Keep a card on file if appropriate. And make sure that you're doing follow-up of unpaid invoices. It's not about becoming harsh. It's about making sure you can afford to still run your practice. And a final case use is spotting when burnout is affecting the business side. It doesn't always look dramatic. It's not a case of a full breakdown, but it can show up as avoiding admin or delaying invoicing or forgetting to transfer tax money. All of these little things could just signal that you're getting stretched a bit too thin, and that weekly money routine can act as an early warning sign. If that routine starts feeling impossible every week, that's useful information too. It's actually at that point that you most need the system. So, a few quick common mistakes to avoid. Don't turn the routine into a big fussy project. If it takes an hour each week, it'll be hard to keep up. Keep it to that 15 minutes. Don't track dozens of numbers just because you can. Focus on the few figures that help make decisions. Don't skip the routine when things feel tight, because this is when clarity helps the most. And inconsistency makes patterns harder to see, so pick a regular date and time if you can to do this. Link the habit to something pleasant, like a post-clinic coffee or a quick walk before the afternoon session starts. That will help you to get it fixed. And if you're feeling behind, you've avoided your numbers for months, you don't need to catch up perfectly before starting. Begin with this week. A simple weekly habit beats a grand clean-up plan that never happens. You're allowed to keep it boring. Boring systems are often the kindest ones because they keep working when you're tired. So try the 15-minute money routine this week using the simplest version possible. And as I say, don't forget to go back and look at the other video if you've not seen it. Create one tracker, paper or digital, before you finish watching, and just comment with the number one thing that you want most clarity on. Is it weekly income, expenses, cancellations, cash flow? Whichever it is, just comment below and let me know so that we can focus on that going forward. This helps normalise the business side of practice, which is where we can get a bit caught up. We know what we're doing in clinic day to day. It's the admin side that often trips us up. So take a bit of time this week to get this money routine nailed, and I'll be back again with another tip for you very soon. Thanks for stopping by.